Hello dear student, I am Nurhan Osama, teaching assistant in Faculty of Commerce, Cairo University. Today we will talk about chapter 17 in Cost Accounting course named by the process costing. Let's start by knowing the learning objectives of this chapter. Number 1. Illustrating the process costing to know what is meaning by the process costing and the difference between the process costing and job costing. Number 2, the weighted average method. Number 3, the first in, first out method, FIFO, in calculating the process costing. Number 4, comparing between two methods, the weighted average method and the FIFO. Number 5, transferred in costs and the weighted average. Number 6, transferred in costs and the FIFO method. Let's start by the first learning objective, which is illustrating the process costing. The distinction or the difference between the job costing and the process costing explained in chapter 4. Job costing system based on the distinct or different and identifiable units of a product or service, for example, custom-made machines and houses. But the process costing system based on masses of identical or similar units of a product or services like food or chemicals. Okay? So in a process costing system, the unit cost of a product or service is obtained by assigning total costs to many identical or similar units of output. In other words, unit costs are calculated by only dividing the total costs incurred by the number of units of output from the production process. And in a manufacturing process costing setting, each unit receives the same or similar amounts of direct material costs and direct manufacturing labor costs, and also the indirect manufacturing costs, which is the manufacturing overhead. So the main difference between process costing and the job costing is the extent of averaging used to compute the unit costs of products or services. So in job costing system, individual jobs use different quantities of resources. So it would be incorrect to cost each job at the same average production cost. Okay, but in contrast, when identical or similar units of products or services are mass-produced rather than processed as individual jobs, process costing is used to calculate an average production cost for all units produced. Process costing systems separate costs into cost categories according to when costs are introduced into the process, either from the beginning or the middle of the process. If two different direct costs are added to the process at different times, the two different direct material categories would be needed to assign these costs to products. And if manufacturing labor costs are added to the process at a different time compared to other conversion costs, an additional cost category, direct manufacturing labor cost, would be needed to assign these costs to products. So we will illustrate the process costing using three cases of increasing complexity. The first case, which is the basic or the easiest one, is the process costing with the zero beginning and zero ending work in process inventory. So, case number 1, start with zero beginning and zero ending work in process. This case presents the most basic concepts of process costing and illustrate the averaging of cost. The cost per unit is then calculated by dividing the total cost incurred in a given accounting period by the total units produced in that period. So, in case number 1, present basic concept of process costing, 0 beginning work in process and also 0 ending work in process. We calculate the cost per unit by dividing total cost incurred in a specified period by the total units produced in that period. Then, in case number 2, the process costing with 0 beginning work in process inventory but some ending work in process. So the difference between the case number 1 and case number 2 is that case number 1, 0 ending work in process, but case number 2, there is some ending work in process inventory. This case introduces the 5 steps of process costing and the concept of equivalent units. Here is the 5 steps of process costing are as follows. Step number 1, we summarize the flow of physical units of output. Step number 2, we compute the output in terms of equivalent units. We calculate the equivalent units. Step number 3, summarize the total costs to account for. Step number 4, compute the cost per equivalent unit by dividing the total costs by the total equivalent units. Step number 5, assign the total costs to the units completed and to the units in ending work in process inventory. Case number 3, process costing with both some beginning and some ending work in process inventory. This case adds more complexity and illustrates the effect the weighted average and FIFO first in, first out methods have on the cost of units completed and the cost of work in process inventory. So, the difference between case number 1 and case number 2 in only the work in process ending. In case number 1, there is no beginning or ending work in process, and we calculate the cost per unit by dividing total cost incurred in a given accounting period by the total unit produced in the same period. And case number 2, there is no beginning work in process, but there is an ending work in process. So we will follow the 5 steps we talk about. And case number 3, there is beginning and ending work in process, and there is 2 methods to calculate the cost, weighted average method and first in first out or FIFO methods. The weighted average method. The weighted average process costing method calculates the cost per equivalent unit of all work done to date, regardless of the accounting period in which it was done. So it calculates cost per equivalent unit of all work done to date, regardless the period in which it was done, and assigns this cost to equivalent units completed and transferred out of the process and to equivalent units in ending work in process inventory. So here it regardless the accounting period in which the product was done or the equivalent unit was done. The weighted average cost is the total of all costs entering the work in process account, whether the costs are from beginning work in process or from work started during the current period, divided by total equivalent units of work done to date. So here, the weighted average cost is the total of all costs entering the work in process divided by the total equivalent units of work done to date. The first exercise, explaining the weighted average method. Exercise 1731, weighted average method. Larsen Company manufactures car seats in its San Antonio plant. Each car seat passes through the assembly department and the testing department. This problem focuses on the assembly department. Okay, the process costing system at Larsen Company has a single direct cost category, which is the direct material, and a single indirect cost category, which is the conversion cost. Direct materials are added at the beginning of the process. Conversion costs are added evenly during the process. When the assembly department finishes work on each car seat, it is immediately transferred to testing department. Larsen Company uses the weighted average method of process costing. Data for the assembly department for October 2014 are as follows. Here the physical units and the direct materials and the conversion costs for work in process October 1, which is the beginning work in process, started during October 2014, completed during October 2014, and the ending work in process, and finally the total costs added during October. So here, degree of completion, direct materials, 100%, because he said that direct material added at the beginning of the process, and give me that the beginning work in process, the conversion costs was 60%, and the ending work in process, the conversion costs was 70%. And the beginning work in process, physical unit car seats, 5,000, and direct material cost was 1,250,000, and the conversion cost 400 to 750. Started units 20,000 car seats, and the completed units 500,000 units, and the ending work in process car seats was 2,500, and the total cost for the direct materials 4,500,000, and conversion cost was 2,337,500. Here he asked about, for each cost category, compute the equivalent units in the assembly department. Show physical units in the first column of your schedule. Number 2, what issues should the manager focus on when reviewing the equivalent units calculation? Number 3, for each cost category, summarize total assembly department costs for October 2014 and calculate the cost per equivalent unit. Number 4, assign costs to units completed and transferred out and to units in ending work in process. First question, for each cost category, compute equivalent units in assembly department. Here is the solution. Number 1, because direct materials are added at the beginning of the assembly process, as we said that the units in this department must be 100% complete with respect to direct material. Solution in the exception 1731A shows the equivalent units of work done to date. Direct material will be 25,000 equivalent units, and the conversion cost will be 24,250 equivalent units. Here's the solution. Summarize the flow of physical unit and compute output in equivalent units. Weighted average method of process costing, assembly department of Larsen Company for October 2014. The flow of production, the beginning work in process, it is given physical units 5,000. and the started during the current period also given 20,000. So the production or the flow of production units to account for 25,000. Completed and transferred out during current period 22,500, and because it's completed, so it take all the direct materials and will be 22,500. It's 100% and also 100% conversion cost, and it will be 22,500. But in the work in process ending, it is given 2,500, but it's 100% direct material, so it will be 2,500 multiplied 100%, it will be 2,500. And for the conversion cost at 70%, it will be 2,500 multiplied 70% will be 1,750. So the equivalent units of work done to date, 25,000 physical units, and direct material 25,000. The adding of 22,500 plus 2,500 will be 25, and conversion cost 22,500 plus 1,750, it will be 24,250. The degree of completion in this department, direct material 100% because they are added at the start of process, and the conversion cost 70%. Question number 2 asks about what issues should the manager focus on when reviewing the equivalent units calculations. To show better performance, a department supervisor might report a higher degree of completion resulting in understated cost per equivalent unit and overstated operating income. But if the performance for the period is very good, the department supervisor may be tempted to report a lower degree of completion, reducing income in the current period. This has the effect of reducing the costs carried in ending inventory and the costs carried to the following year in the beginning inventory. In other words, estimates of degree of completion can help to smooth earnings from one period to the next. To guard against the possibility of bias, managers should ask supervisors specific questions about the process they followed to prepare estimates. Top management should always emphasize obtaining the correct answer, regardless of how it affects reported performance. This emphasis drives ethical actions throughout the organization. Question number 3. For each cost category, summarize total assembly department costs and calculate the cost per equivalent unit. And number 4, he wants to assign costs to units completed and transferred out and to units in ending work in process. The solution for number 3 and 4. Except to 1731b will summarize the total assembly department costs for October 2014, calculates the cost per equivalent unit of work done to date, and assigns these costs to units completed and transferred out and to units in ending work in process using the weighted average. Calculate the cost per equivalent unit and assign the costs to completed units and the work in process ending. Here is a solution. It summarizes the total cost to account for, compute the cost per equivalent unit, and assign costs to the units completed and units in ending work in process inventory. Weighted average method of process costing, assembly department of Larsen Company for October 2014. Here is total production cost and the direct material costs and the conversion costs. The work in process beginning it is given to direct material was 1,250,000 and the conversion cost was 400 to 750. So the total production cost will be 1,650 to 750. Then the costs added in the current period also given direct material was 4,500,000 and the conversion cost 2,337,500. So the total cost added in the current period 6,837,500. And so the total costs to account for direct material total of the work in process beginning plus the cost added in the current period, it will be 5,750,000 and the conversion cost total will be 2,740,250. So the total costs to account for both direct material and conversion cost will be 8,490,250. The costs incurred to date: direct material 5,750,000 and conversion cost 2,740,250. It will be divided by the equivalent units of work done to date, which we got it from the Accept 1731E, number of equivalent units, 25,000 direct material and in conversion cost 24,250. We divide the costs by the equivalent units to get the cost per equivalent units, which will be direct material $230 and the conversion cost will be $113. Finally, the assignment of costs, the completed and transferred out, it is 22,500 units. We multiply the number of units by the cost per equivalent unit, which is 230. And also for the conversion cost, number of units 22,500 multiplied by cost per equivalent unit, which is 113. We will get the total cost for the completed and transferred out units, 7,717,500. And for the work in process ending, which is 2,500 units, we multiply number of units multiplied by the cost per equivalent unit for the direct material and for the conversion cost. We will get the total production cost for the ending work in process, 772,750. So the total cost accounted for direct material for the completed and transferred out and work in process ending balance for the direct material will get 5,750,000 and for the conversion cost 2,740,000 and 250. So the total production cost accounted for 8,490,250. This is for the how to calculate costs and assign costs for the equivalent units using the weighted average method. The second method, which is FIFO, the first in, first out method. The first in, first out process costing method. Number 1 assigns the cost of the previous accounting period's equivalent units in beginning work in process inventory to the first units completed and transferred out of the process. And 2 assigns the cost of equivalent units worked on during the current period first to complete the beginning inventory, next to start and complete new units, and finally to units in ending work in process inventory. The FIFO method assumes that the earliest equivalent units in work in process are completed first. A distinctive feature of the FIFO process costing method is that work done on the beginning inventory before the current period is kept separate from work done in the current period. The costs incurred and units produced in the current period are used to calculate the cost per equivalent unit of work done in the current period. In contrast, the equivalent unit and cost per equivalent unit calculations under the weighted average method merge the units and costs in beginning inventory with the units and costs of work done in the current period. Let us solve on FIFO method. Continuation of 1731. Do problem 1731 using the FIFO method of process costing. Explain any difference between the cost per equivalent unit in the assembly department under the weighted average method and the first in first out method. Number 2. Should license managers choose the weighted average method or the first in first out FIFO method? Explain briefly. Here is the problem. He gave me the beginning work in process and the started units and the completed units and the ending work in process and total costs added during October. Physical units and direct materials and conversion costs for direct material and conversion cost for the beginning work in process. First, summarizing the flow of physical units and compute output in equivalent units. First in, first out method of process costing, assembly department of Larsen Company for October 2014. Step number 1 is the physical units. Flow of production, work in process beginning, the number given by 5,000 physical units and the started during the current period also given 20,000. So the production or flow of production units to accounted for was 25,000. And then the completed and transferred out during current period, we separate beginning work in process from other started and completed. So from beginning work in process, first 5,000 and then started and completed 17,000 and the ending work in process which is given 2,500. Okay, then the accounted for units 25,000. So the direct material for the beginning work in process will be 0 because it took all the direct material before. So 5,000 multiply 100% minus 100% will be 0. And for the conversion cost, 5,000 multiply 100% minus 60%, it will only 40% because it took before 60%. So the conversion cost 40% multiply 5,000 will be 2,000. This is for the completed and transferred out units from beginning work in process. And then from the started and completed, 17,500 multiplied 100% will be 17,500, and 17,500 multiply 100% for the conversion cost will be also 17,500. And also the work in process ending will be 100% for the direct material will be 2,500 and only 70% in the conversion cost. So 2,500 multiplied 70% will be 1,750. So the equivalent units of work done in current period for the direct material 17,500 plus 2,500 will be 20,000. And for the conversion cost, 2,000 plus 17,500 started and completed units plus the ending working process, which is 1,750, the total equivalent unit will be 21,250. The cost per equivalent unit of work done in the assembly department in October 2014 for direct material and conversion cost is calculated in solution except 1733b. It will also summarize the total assembly department costs and assign the costs to units completed under the FIFO method. It will assign costs to units completed and the units in the ending work in process. Here is the work in process beginning. It given direct material 1,250,000 and conversion cost 400 to 750,000. So the total production cost for the beginning work in process 1,652,750. The costs added in current period it also given for the direct material 4,500,000 and conversion cost 2,333,500. The total will be 6,837,500. Total cost to account for the total direct material will be 5,750,000 and conversion cost 2,740,250. So the total production cost to accounting for 8,490,000 and 250. So the cost is added in the current period 4,500,000 and 2,337,500 divided by the equivalent units of work done in current period, which is 20,000 direct material and 21,250 conversion cost. We will get the cost per equivalent unit. For the direct material 225 and for the conversion cost $110. The last step is the assignment of costs. Completed and transferred out. Number of units was 22,500 and work in process beginning 5,000. So completed and transferred will be 1,250,000 plus 402,750. Conversion cost will be the total 1,652,750. And work in process beginning 5,000 will be total production cost 220,000. So the total from beginning inventory 1,872,750. Then the started and completed for the 17,500 units. 17,500 units multiply the cost per equivalent unit, which is 225, plus the number of units, equivalent units multiplied by the cost per equivalent unit in the conversion cost 110. We will get the total 5,862,500. The total cost of units completed and transferred out will be 7,735,250. Work in process, the ending units 2,500 units. Also multiply this number of units, multiply cost per equivalent units in the direct material and the conversion cost to get the total 755,000. So the total cost accounting for direct material total all of these amounts in the direct material completed and beginning work in process and started and completing and ending work in process, we will get 5,750,000 direct material and conversion cost 2,740,000 and 250. So the total costs accounted for 8,490,000 and 250. Then we will talk about the transferred in costs in process costing. Many process costing systems have two or more departments or process in the production cycle. As units move from one department to another department, the related costs are also transferred by monthly journal entries. Transferred in costs, also called the previous department cost, are costs incurred in previous departments that are carried forward as the product's cost when it moves to a subsequent process in the production cycle. So when the units move from one department to another, its related costs also transferred by monthly journal entry. And the transferred in cost also called previous department costs because it is related to the previous department. Transferred in costs are treated as if they are a separate type of direct material added at the beginning of the process. That is, the transferred in costs are always 100% complete at the beginning of the process in the new department. When successive departments are involved, the transferred units from one department become all or a part of the direct materials of the next department. However, they are called transferred in costs, not direct material costs. Points to remember about transferred in costs. There are some points to be remembered when accounting for the transferred in costs, which are as follows. Number 1, be sure to include the transferred in costs from previous department in your calculations because it is related from the previous department. And as we said that when one unit transfers from one department to another department, the cost also transferred from the previous department to the successive department. Number 2, when calculating the cost to be transferred using the FIFO method, don't overlook costs assigned in the previous period to units that were in process at the beginning of current period but are now included in the units transferred. Number 3, units may be measured in different denominations in different departments. Consider each department separately. For example, unit costs could be based on kilograms in the first department and liters in the second department. Accordingly, as units are received in the second department, their measurements must be converted to liters. Let's solve this example. Exercise 1740, transferred in costs, weighted average and FIFO methods. Portland Pale Ale Incorporation makes a variety of specialty beers at its main brewery in Oregon. Production of beer occurs in 3 main stages: mashing, boiling, and fermenting. Consider the fermenting department, where direct materials, bottles, and other packaging are added at the end of the process. Conversion costs are added evenly during the process, and Portland Pale Ale provides the following information related to its top-selling gypsum ale for the fermenting department for the month of July. So, here, the beginning working process physical unit was 2,500 and transferred in cost 116,000, direct material 0 and conversion cost 37,500. Transferred in during July from boiling department 10,000 physical units and completed during July 10,500, ending working process 2,000 total cost added during July for transferred in cost 384,000 and direct material 110,775 and conversion cost 152 to 150. The units in beginning work in process are 25% complete for conversion costs, while the units in ending inventory are 50% complete for the conversion cost. First, he wants us to solve using the weighted average method and summarizing total fermenting department cost for July and assign cost to units completed and to units in ending work in process. Number 2, solving the same but by using FIFO method for the fermenting department. Under FIFO, the transferred in cost for work in process beginning inventory in July are 115,680 instead of 116,000 under the weighted average method, and the transferred in cost during July from boiling department are 376,000 instead of 384,000 under the weighted average. All other data are unchanged. Let's solve first the weighted average method. Solution step 17 for compute 48 computes the equivalent units of work done to date in the fermenting department for transferred in costs, direct material conversion cost. Solution B, summarize total fermenting department costs for July and calculating the cost per equivalent unit of work done to date in the fermenting department for transferred in costs, direct material and conversion cost, and assign these costs to units completed and transferred out and 2 units in ending work in process using the weighted average method. Number 2, 1740C will compute the equivalent unit of work done in July in the fermenting department for transferred in costs, direct material and conversion cost, and 40D summarize total fermenting department costs for July, calculate cost per equivalent unit, and this for 40C and 40D will be for the FIFO method, but A and B will be for the weighted average method. Starting by 40A, which will be the equivalent units of work done to date by weighted average method. Physical units, work in process beginning 2,500, it's given, and transferred in during current period 10,000 given, so the two account for units 12,500. And for the completed and transferred out during current period, the physical units 10,500 and it will be 100%, so transferred in cost 10,500 and direct material 10,500 and conversion cost 10,500, but the work in process ending it's given, so transferred in cost 100%, 2,000, and 0% for the direct material and only 50% for the conversion cost will be 1,000. So the accounting for physical units 12,500 and the equivalent unit of work done to date will be transferred in cost 12,500 and 10,500 direct material and conversion cost 11,500. And here 40P summarize the total costs to account for, compute the cost per equivalent unit, and assigning cost to units completed and units ending work in process. So the work in process beginning, total production cost for transferred in cost 116,000 and 0 for direct material and conversion cost 37,500, so the total production cost will be 153,500, and costs added in current period for transferred in costs and direct material and conversion costs, the total will be 647,025,000, and total cost will be total of transferred and direct material and conversion cost will be 800,525,000. And then costs incurred to date divided by number of equivalent units will be $40 for transferred in cost equivalent unit cost and 10.55 and 16.5 for the conversion cost. And the assignment of cost, we multiply the cost per equivalent unit multiplied by the number of units for the completed and transferred out cost units and the work in process units. The complete and transferred out 500 units multiplied by 40 for transferred in cost multiplied by 10.55 for the direct material and multiplied by 16.5 for the conversion cost, and also the work in process ending 2000 units multiply the equivalent cost per equivalent units to get the total cost accounting for. And here is the weighted average method. The other method, which is the FIFO, get the physical units and computing the output in equivalent units by using the FIFO method. As we know that we will start by the beginning work in process and transferred in during the current period, the same in both weighted average and FIFO, this step. Second, the completed and transferred out during the current period, here's the difference. From beginning work in process, 2,500 multiply 100% minus 100%, so it will be 0 for the transferred in cost, and 100% for the direct material will be 2,500, and 100% minus 25%, which is 75% for the conversion cost. Started and completed, 8,000 will be 100% for all transferred in cost, direct material and conversion. Work in process ending, 2,000, 100% transferred in cost, but 0% for the direct material and 50% for the conversion cost. So the total equivalent units of work done in current period will be 10,000 transferred in cost and 10,500 units for the direct material and 10,875 units for the conversion cost. 40D summarize the total cost and assigning of the cost to units completed and units ending work in process using the FIFO method. Work in process beginning given for the transferred in cost, direct material and conversion, so the total will be 153, 180, and cost added in the current period given also for the transferred in cost, direct material and conversion cost. We adding all to get the total production cost added in the current period, which is 639,025. So the total cost to account for will be $792,205,000. Step number 4, costs added during the period divided by the equivalent units to get the cost per equivalent unit. We divided the cost added during the period divided by the equivalent units. We will get cost per equivalent unit for the transferred in cost 37.6 and 10.55 direct material and 14 for the conversion cost. Assignment of costs for the completed and transferred out, we multiply the cost per equivalent units for each of transferred in cost and direct material and conversion cost for the work in process beginning and completed transferred out, and also started and completed and work in process ending, and adding all these for transferred in cost, we will get total costs accounted for, which will be 491,680 for the transferred in cost and 110,775 for the direct material and 189,750 for the conversion cost. Now we can say that we finished chapter 17, process costing. Hoping you understand it well. Thank you and goodbye.